that has the registration, does that mean there is a rental permit, or it just means?
Yes, you wouldn't register.
You won't have
if you
one
didn't
without
have a
the other?
rental. Correct.
Okay, great. So the
And
names
also, by
of,
the way, if you live there, you wouldn't necessarily rent it if you were occupying it. So the presumption is if you're renting the property, you're gonna have somebody else in the property.
so you have to have the two
Right.
forms, one goes with the other. Okay, so the registration form, that will have the name and the number, the identity of the occupants,
The name.
just the name. And if
Yes.
that changes periodically throughout the year,
It
that
must
will
be
be
updated.
updated.
Correct.
Okay, so we can't, the public cannot really foil that, right?
Correct.
Okay, but we can foil the other form, and it has the number
Correct.
and all the other information that we would need, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. It wasn't clear, thank you.
All right. Excuse me, darlings. All right, Ollie can go. Hey, what are you doing, girl? Never mind, I'll sit here for a second.
Bringing the houses up to FEMA colors. All right, when does that have to go into place for them to get a permit?
Correct.
What if they already have a permit that hasn't been done?
Well, that's a good question. The village's position would be that if you have a rental permit now and you're up for a renewal, you would have to certify that the property is in compliance with the applicable chapter 1 through 30. So I can't say,
I know the house that was bought from me, went through Sandy. The house had 2.5 feet of water in it. All right? The landlord went into the house, cleaned it up real quick, and he's renting it back out again. And I believe it's to, Section 8 or, welfare or whatever, but the house, I mean, nobody should be living in this house because everything was underwater. It didn't do the electric, it didn't do anything.
that's part of the village's concern.
And that's the
that
big
there are
thing with a lot of
properties-
those properties all have, that the electric
That are
system
unsafe.
is very unsafe. And you have people that are still living in these houses almost 2 years later. You guys, are you gonna require houses that are down by the water, that got flooded, to have a certificate stating that the electrical's been redone?
Well, it's gonna be,
Because otherwise, you got people living in houses that, are fire hazards. And, I mean, any house that was subject to flood should have an electrical inspection or show that they've had it done. I've had my house done. It cost me over $6,000 to have my electric redone. And I got a certificate, it's been inspected, everything else. But then I know other people, it's all right. And it's a very easy way to tell, you go in there and you look at the outlets, the new outlets, you can't put a plug in there, it's got a click in it. It's so easy to tell if the electrical's been redone.
Yep.
So
I
I
think
can't,
the problem lies with that is we have to get in the house. Most of the houses that were flooded during Superstorm Sandy, we did get in, not only did we get in, FEMA got in, and it's all documented. Yeah, there's probably a couple of them that slipped. So if you just want to jot down as you pass by here, the address, and I'll definitely look into it. I mean, they very well could have gotten permits to redo it.
I don't even think they have a permit for it.
Okay, so if you know what the address is, just give it to me and we have it checked.
All right. I'm just concerned that people say that, these people don't know what they're living in. You know what I mean?
And I can guarantee you that a candidate WD-40 doesn't correct.
Exactly.
flooded outlet.
Exactly, or just changing the outlets and the electrical's still the same. And all this house, the electric is under the house, most of it. And there's so many junctions and this and that, I mean, I saw what came out from under my house. And I was very glad that I redid it. So, I'm just saying, it's, I think it's, you still have a lot of houses that, basically fire traps. And somebody's gonna die. It's just sooner or later, these houses are gonna go up. And especially now, when they're starting to draw a lot more electric, with air conditioners and everything else. Swimming pools, the rest. That's just something I think that should be addressed.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. You can cut the mic, because it's making fuzzies back there. People can't hear. What's that? Hello, Virgilia Gross, 300 Whittier Drive, Mastic Beach, Village. Question. Right now, we have rental registrations in the village. What is the purpose of the village knowing who is living there?
I'll leave that up to the board, so the board has no.
Because to me, it kind of seems like an invasion of privacy. If a landlord goes through the process and has their home or their rental property verified by the building inspector, okay, 3 people can live there, what do you care who's living there? To me, it's a privacy thing, that's all.
No, if I may answer that.
Yes.
In the state of Vermont, I'm required to register my tenants in there so that if there's an incident, the authorities have a contact person, and the town has a contact person. I personally felt that this would be a good idea for us to go after renters. For example, I see no point in punishing the landlord because the renter is throwing garbage in his front yard, when I feel it would be more effective resolution to go after the renter with the actual perpetrator of crimes like that. So I don't think it's a privacy issue whatsoever. I think it's an additional tool in our toolbox to go out and address quality of life crimes that landlords and absentee owners aren't responding to.
It makes sense, it does, but like right now I have a situation across the street from me where they're not throwing garbage, they're actually dealing drugs. Now, is that the tenant's problem, or do we have a complaint with the landlord? I feel it's the landlord's responsibility to make sure he's renting to decent people. So, I don't understand why knowing the identity of who is renting on a governmental level helps at all. If you know the landlord and how to get a hold of the landlord, that's all you need for justice court. Correct?
I think your example is a good example of why you'd want to know who the tenants are if they're dealing drugs. Because it's not the landlord.
Right. But that doesn't see, and this is it. If they're dealing drugs, the village can only take a bite out of the housing regulations that are being broken. But SCPD now needs to be called in for the drug dealing, correct? So you're limited in what you can do tenant-wise, but landlord-wise, I think you've got everything you need. It's just a privacy thing. I mean, I don't care. Not that I don't care.
We have a change to the nuisance law, which is coming up next, which would address the drug issue. And that if there's 2 arrests or convictions at a residence, that the village has the right of seizure and forfeiture of that house. So I think that these 2 things dovetail into each other. And I just think that this would be an additional tool in helping us with some of the smaller quality of life crimes. It does not, it's not going to address your drug dealing crime, but it will address some of the smaller quality of life crimes, I feel.
So this, in other words, is the village's attempt to get a stronger handle on the housing issues that are plaguing us right now?
Correct.
But I still be able to foil the owner's information of the
Yes.
property?
Correct, you
Okay.
can still file for the owners.
I don't care who the tenant is. Owner. That's what I want to know.
And
You're
some,
talking about the house that I've been,
Boom.
Okay,
5 more days.
We'll talk.
thanks,
It's getting
Joe.
very interesting. Thank you. Here, okay.
So I want to commend the board. They hit it right on the head about what
Frank, you should name.
Frank Fugarino,
Oh, yeah.
464 Riviera Drive. You're correct. You're correct in allowing quality of life and civic leaders and residents to know whether or not a residence has a rental permit. All we need, for is the owner's, if you can get the owner's name, the number of the rental permit, the date of issuance, and the date it expires. That's all I personally need, and that's worked in the past, because from there, you can access public files, data, that's available in terms of whether or not they're abusing Star, or whether or not they have a rental permit or not. Very often residents want to know, does this house have a rental permit? I know that they're renting, but I wanted to use my time to mention two things. One, it is absolutely a great idea to have the renters' names. I won't say the number of the street, number of the house, but on, and I won't do it except with West Forest Road, the way in which that owner moved that illegal situation, which was drug dealing, and took action was because he had only known of the single person that he rented to. That person allowed the cousins to come in and deal drugs from the curb at 10 p.m. every night. So it's not only a village situation, it's a police situation as well, because now there was that additional information that helped and that caused that absentee owner who lived in Nassau County, who wasn't aware that his house is being used for this other purpose, to go and take action. And so it's a valuable thing. It's beyond any, there are a lot of different avenues. It's another tool, like you said. The other thing I want to say though, if you're amending this law, and we recognize how many houses are rentals, and how much more work there is for village employees, why not now take the time, take the step of increasing either administrative fees or the absentee owner, should I shut this? Yeah. No, this is the opportunity to now make some changes, including increasing either the administrative fees when rental permits are not renewed, or, and my time's up, but rental permits, when the rental permit is not renewed on a timely basis, that might be a way to add an administrative fee, or increase the absentee owner's rental fee, since there is so many homes that are rented, that are rentals, that we have to follow up on. The number, by the way, is almost 1,500. I mean, you know, that potentially are rental houses. Anyway.
All right, thank you, Frank.
You know, I again, Brian, would like to know about the legality of doing a tiered permit fee for short-term summer rentals as opposed to year-round rentals. And if there's a way to make it less for summer rentals, what would encourage people to maybe rent for the summer and make it more expensive for year-round.
I was talking about kidding, listen, Chuck.
So if I may comment on that a little further, it would dovetail nicely if we're going to stop property owners from renting year-round by not raising their houses to FEMA expectations, and then be able to offer them a summer rental permit, which would be exempt from raising it, the FEMA regulations. For those people, in the event of a storm or an emergency, could be canceled, their vacation could be canceled like any other hotel would do. So, and this would be a way for us to try to shift from a year-round rental to a seasonal rental, which would bring in more desirable renters with more disposable income. But I think that should be a follow-up to tonight's work.
Mr. Fahey?
Bill Fahey, 7 Cedar Road. I'm opposed to prohibiting the oiling of information. Our past history out here has been too good. The more information we get about everything, the better off we're going to be. If you're just going to go for the guy who owns the house, he may be out in California. You might spend 2 years trying to get in contact with him, and I think it's happened before. So I think it gives us other options to have all the information that we can have with the FOIL and everything else.
Thank you, Mr. Fahey.
Howard Warren, 64 Huntington Drive, yes.
I think basically you should be able to get the people's information, because when you're renting, say you're renting a house, and the people stop paying you rent, and they just start destroying the house. Now you're going to go after the landlord. It might take the landlord 2 years to get them people out of the house. You know, these people, I've seen it where people just turn around and stop paying the rent, and they live there. Now, this poor landlord's not getting any rent. Now the town's coming down on them, and going to be giving them fines left and right. You know, it's not the landlord's fault at that point. Because that's the way the law is written. These people sit there, they have all the rights. I mean, at the point, they could turn around and get an order of protection, and the landlord can't even step foot on the property. I've seen that happen. You know, so what do you do in that case? You know, here's a poor guy that owns a house, he's got a mortgage, trying to make a dime on the house, people stop paying him rent. Now he's sitting there eating $1,000, $2,000 a month, not getting paid. And now the village is gonna come down on him, hitting him with $500 fines, this, that, and everything else, and he can't get nowhere near the house. How could you say that that would be right? You gotta go after the tenant. Whoever's making the problem is responsible for the problem, not the landlord. It's like saying, I'm making a mess out of my house, so you should go after the mayor. Because I live in your town, all right?
Brian, scratch that from the book.
Honestly,
We understand.
you know, so I'm not a landlord, don't get me wrong. I just feel that, you know, I've seen it happen to other people. And then you have the thing where you have squatters. Now, what are you gonna do? Go after the person that owns the house on record? When you got a squatter in the house?
Definitely,
That's the only thing you can.
absolutely.
How are you gonna, if the landlord can't, the person that owns the house
They have
can't get the squatter
They
out?
have the
We have
obligation
the-
to.
We have the village has the
We'll have the
information.
information.
You may not have it, but we
We
will
have
have it.
That's the distinction with FOIL. I mean, there was a confusion before, I think, the last couple. FOIL is the Freedom of Information law.
If you have the person's name, you
Under
don't
the
have the social
public-
security number
They
and
have
how
it.
much money
We
he's
will
making.
have
We have the name of the tenant.
All we would have to do is actually make a police report against the person, the police come down, and you're gonna find out the person's name anyway. if it's in the house.
Not necessarily.
No.
We'll know on grass and dogs and rubbish and all those other quality of life issues that go on. We will know
Who the tenant
who that
is.
person is, correct.
Right, so I feel,
Registration of cars.
so I feel that anything that happens on the property should be the person who's making the problem.
Which is why we want the identity of the tenant.
Right. Like I said,
You agree with
I don't wanna come after you when, you know, when I say my lawn ain't mowed, well, it's the mayor's fault.
You're agreeing with us, right?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, I think, but I think that it should be available. As far
And
as,
it's available to us, it's just that one form will not be available to the outside world.
There's only one form that's gonna change.
all right.
Okay, thank you. Right? Gabrielle, again. You talk. Okay.
I'm quick. Michelle Wilkinson, 191 Washington Drive. I agree that the tenants should all be listed, but I don't understand why the summer tenants shouldn't be listed. It almost seems like, you know, okay, they have money, so they're gonna rent for the summer, but people who live here all year round have different rules. Why do you think people coming in for the summer would treat the place any better when they're only gonna be there for 3 months? I think we should have
Well, first off, you're assuming that they'll be there for 3 months. And they could be, they could very well be. But, you know, most of the rentals will be in a week to 2 week to 4 week, maybe a seasonal rental. I don't see any problem with that. And I don't see necessarily the need of quality of life issues arising in a 2-month period. We have code enforcement if they're partying too hard. You know, I don't think they're gonna come to Mastic Beach and rent for the summer to deal drugs. They could be, but we could address those issues as they arise. But I would tend to think that summer people are more recreational, they're bringing money into the area, and I see a complete difference between the two.
Make sure that the landlord is responsible.
I think if it's a weekly, it's totally different, if it's weekly, but if someone rents for the whole summer, you know, there's nothing to say that their teenagers aren't gonna start a fire on the lawn or whatever.
I think if maybe we could do something along those lines, but I do know from people that have rental permits and are doing it through Airbnb, which is, I think, for us, could be a really a win-win situation for us, is something like these websites like HomeAway, Airbnb, where people are renting for 3 days, they're renting for 7 days, 2 weeks. And I think trying to micromanage at that level would be too difficult administratively, it would be too expensive. Perhaps we could have in there something where if it's 8 weeks or more, that they would also have to do that. But But again, I think you're dealing with a different situation, and so far from the summer rentals that I've seen, we're getting families with kids with bicycles, kayaking. We're not really, I think we've had one incident where they did a promotional party, and that's, people have been renting, I won't mention it, but I know a guy right by me has been renting through Home Away from Home for almost 4 years, and he's literally 5 houses for me, and there's never, ever been a problem. I think there's the one problem of a promotional party on a Friday night. So something like that, I think we'd have to deal with when we got there. But right now, I think the larger problem are the long-term rentals with the transient kind of high-risk population has been more of a problem.
Brian, just on a question, if, say, mention my name, say I am renting my house for a week or a month or whatever it is there anything that we can put in there, because I can understand with Michelle, you know, we're singling out different people. A simple phone call, I have the Joneses coming to stay at my house for a week. I mean, we could drive by there and we see people in the house that's, you know, not normally occupied. How do we know who they are?
Right.
So if there's some way we could add to it, then.
I think what I recommend tonight is, those are all good thoughts, that's why you have a public hearing, to get the public's perception and take on these things as they evolve. What I recommend is you adopt this now. Trustee Suma, Trustee Sperry talked about rental, short-term rental permits, or exempting those kind of situations. That's gonna require different permits, potentially exempting them from lower fees. That's a phase B on this. I think the real plan now is to get this section in for the year-round, more than 30-day rentals, which is qualified for. Get this passed, and then consider a seasonal or other short-term rentals.
Right, we could always put it on.
Absolutely.
All right, I agree with that. I think there should be a separate summer seasonal rental permit. But I don't see anything wrong with getting their name. I go to a hotel, I'm only there for a day. They make me take not only my name, my credit card. So giving your name when you rent something is not a bizarre idea.
The landlord has the name.
Yes, well, is he sharing it? I mean, you know, he can share, you know what I'm saying, they put it on the permit. But the other thing I'm curious about, or worried about, is I love the idea that you have to meet FEMA regulations. Not so crazy about the idea of 1,000 empty houses. A lot of these landlords got these houses for spit. If they have to put $100,000 into it to raise it, they're walking away. All right, then we have, I'm just asking for some mechanism that, where the village can do something with these, because right now, how long does these houses sit, you know?
Yeah.
They sit forever.
We're working on
There
that
are
now.
several things that we're actually working on, and one of them might be where the village actually gets to take over the house.
Okay, I've been saying, it just, that's a concern, because I know some of the landlords, they're never gonna fix those houses.
Frank, if I could just say, I'd rather have 10 empty houses on my block than have 10 houses filled with drugs.
Yeah, the problem is the only problem is they're only stay empty for a month until squatters move in and do drugs in them, so.
Thank you, Frank. Andy?
Ann Snyder, 69 Neck Road. I'll get that. I wanted to know, does the creation of this amendment allow the village to quote-unquote go after the tenant now on certain things?
Well, potentially, sure, absolutely.
Okay, such as what, debris on the lawn?
Sure. Garbage, dogs, quality of life issues like that, absolutely.
Are those chapters going to be changed, amended, added, anything like that? Or that's not necessary now?
It's not necessary.
Okay, so you're not going after the owner on those issues at all?
Well, correct, yeah, I agree with Trustee Suma, I would not foreclose that, you know, if it's, let's remember something. Landlord has a responsibility for their property. The landlord must supervise these tenants. You cannot collect rent from outside of town and then say, set it and forget it, like you see on TV. That's the problem. So what the intention here is to get the name of the occupants, so that when there are immediate issues that can be solved, for instance, parking multiple cars in the lawn, or dogs barking, or grass, we have someone who is responsible in the home, who also will bear some responsibility for this charge.
So are you speaking as the landlords come in to Village Hall with the rental permit application? Are you asking them to change their rental agreement with the tenants? Or is that just their
The
sole
relationship
responsibility?
between the landlord and the tenant is between them. They can charge $1 if they want it. They can charge $10,000 if they want it. That's between them.
Okay.
The only issue that the village has, and again, it really is, this law is not about the residents, the people. It's about the residents and the impact on the quality of life in the neighborhood and for the neighbors. It is not, and that is also one of the issues of why, under FOIL, it's not available to the public, the identity of the residents. The residents are an enforcement tool for the village to enforce quality of life tickets. And again, it's not about them, it's about what the impact of the residents is on the neighbors and the neighborhoods.
And my last question is, you said about having the owner certify that the house is up to the flood zone codes. Is that going to be immediate? Like, are you going to send out letters and have them certify this right away, or is it just as it expires?
On renewal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, I'll make this quick. Frank DeLustro, Lakeview Drive. I'm not really sure what this gains, except it gives us more clerical work. And, I mean, any landlord in his right mind, if I got a problem with my tenants and they're making a mess, you're gonna come after me, or you're gonna say to me, what's your tenant's name, we're going after him. I'm gonna give it to you. Why wouldn't you be able to get that easily just by calling the landlord?
You would be surprised.
Frank, we know where you live, we can get you. The other 99% we can't get.
But then what's the whole idea of the permit and everything? You have to be able to track the landlord somehow. Or you go after him then if he's not available.
Not if he's an LLC out in Utah. We're not sending code out to Utah. It's a problem, it's a big problem.
I don't know what you're gonna get from a lot of these tenants either. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to understand, it's not that we're taking away our ability to go after the landlord. We're just adding an ability to go after nuisance tenants.
Oh, I understand that, but I think just a phone call to the landlord and say, hey, we're coming after you or them, what's the name?
Well, again, it's not so easy to pursue landlords that hide behind corporations and that don't live within Long Island.
Thank you, Frank. Any other public comments?
I have actually very quick.
I
think we should
Name, please.
have a Stanfield 76 years. I think we should let the landlords know a little earlier so they have time to comply. Because when we will give them info at the time of renewal, they're gonna take, they're gonna ask another half a year of time to, to bring this up to the FEMA regulation. Maybe we should let them know a little earlier. So maybe right now, even once we adopt the code, the new, regulations, so they know when the renewal comes, they either are, complying or they change the pieces.
Thank you. We should send a letter out to every legal rental there is right now.
And I think what's gonna happen is, once this bill gets passed, if it gets passed tonight, that's exactly what's gonna happen. When it'll be sent out to all rentals.
Hi, for the short-term rentals, I was a letter carrier in Mary's Operating on Company Work Drive in Hampton Bays, and there's something called emergency housing by social services, that's short-term housing. Are you going to put something in the short-term summer rentals that will prevent these people from doing that? It's a big thing in Hampton Bays, it's constant, there's changes all the time, different people, and as a letter carrier, we would see it.
What was it called?
It's emergency housing for social services, well, any kind of emergency housing, always short-term. If somebody is being thrown out of their landlord's house, they need emergency housing. What's to stop a landlord from doing short-term rentals? In Hampton Bays, it's all over the place.
I would think price would be one thing that would stop them.
Nope. CSS will short-term rentals, actually through social services, pay more money. They will pay more money than a regular rental, emergency housing.
So, we don't have a short-term rental law yet, but as we discuss it in the next work session, we'll certainly take note of your comment, which is really very, very smart, and we will make sure we try and put something in there to prevent that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thanks for the information.
Any other public comment? At this time, I'd like to close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor? Gary Stern, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none? All right, we need a motion now to accepting,
I'll make a motion to accept the amendments on chapter 3 of the village code.
Just with the additional amendment, as I read off earlier, to G, that's before the board, rental registration occupancy forms under section 3-4B9 shall be exempt, and that's what I discussed earlier about the identity.
okay, second?
Second.
Morris Perry, all in favor? Opposed, none?
All right, we're gonna move on. Still public hearing, we're amending chapter 300 of the village code to change the conditions and activities deemed nuisances and to change the penalty provisions for any violations of the nuisance chapter.
This, yes, thank you. Thank you for sticking with me this long. This one is complicated, and I'll try to do my best and try to give the explanation as to what this is. Public nuisances are defined under the village code on many multiple things. Prohibited conduct, controlled substances, marijuana, prostitution, gambling, all those things that are required in the New York State penal law is a prohibited conduct under the code. Public nuisances have a very general definition under the village code and under all village codes. Quote, no person shall create, maintain, or allow any nuisance as declared in this chapter to remain on any premises within the village, period. Okay. Now, of course, the next question everybody who went to Catholic school says, well, you define the term with the term in it. Well, here's the list that it has, and it is A through double E, and it says what you can't do. Those continue, and some were changed. Tonight, there are modifications as suggested. This is going to be two parts. It's going to be a point question on blight law, which is going to be second. This is the nuisance code definitions in the beginning. And we'll take those in two parts. We're changing the village prosecutor. The codes have to be specific enough that a charge is sustained on its face. It cannot be what's called unconstitutionally vague. The village prosecutor had concerns about certain definitions in the village code. If you've ever attended a Brookhaven Town Board meeting or the county legislature, you see them tinker with the codes all the time as they get fine-tuned and changed for